The offer was never about the money. It was about the dismissal. $800, the mechanic said, not even looking at Maria. He was staring at his phone, thumb scrolling. Take it or leave it. Frankly, I'm doing you a favor. That thing's a safety hazard. He gestured vaguely at the shape under the tarp in the corner of his cluttered shop. The air smelled of gasoline and futility. Maria had spent the morning mustering courage. The blue 1985 Volkswagen Fusa had sat in her grandfather's locked garage since before she was born. After he died in a crash in '87, her family sealed the space like a tomb. The car was a ghost, a painful reminder tied to a loss no one discussed. But now, with student loans and rent due, the ghost had to pay its way. She pulled the tarp, releasing a cloud of dust that danced in the slanted light. The car was worse than she remembered. The blue paint was now a mosaic of faded color, primer, and russet cancer. A rear window was cracked. The interior smelled of damp earth and old vinyl. It looked less like a vehicle and more like a fossil. The second shop was crueler. Two younger mechanics circled it, poking at the rotten rocker panels with a screwdriver. "The floor's gone, lady," one chuckled. "You could Flintstone this thing," the other kicked a flat tire. "Engine's probably seized solid. 800's a stretch. We'd make our money back on the scrap metal, maybe." Their laughter followed her as she got back into her modern, unremarkable hatchback, the sound of it making her cheeks burn with a shame she couldn't explain. She was betraying a secret she didn't even know. The third stop was Carlos's Auto Rustics. It wasn't a shop so much as a cavernous, brick-walled garage filled with skeletons of beautiful things in various stages of rebirth. Carlos wasn't at the front desk. An old man in coveralls stained with 100 different paints simply pointed a greasy thumb toward the back. She found Carlos under the raised chassis of a vintage truck, his face smudged, his eyes focused. She started her rehearsed pitch. "I have an old Beetle, a Fusa, I need to sell." "Bring it in," he said, his voice a low rasp, not looking away from a weld. "I'll look at everything." An hour later, the Fusa was parked in the center of his space, illuminated under the harsh work lights like a patient on an operating table. The other mechanics had gone home. The raucous shop was silent. Carlos walked around it slowly, 3, 4 times. He didn't speak. He ran his hand along the fender, crouched to peer underneath, opened the creaking door, and sat in the driver's seat for a full minute, eyes closed. Maria waited, confused by the ritual. "It's not about value," Carlos finally said, emerging. "It's about story. This car has one. I can feel it in the wear on the pedals. Someone loved driving this." He saw her defeated expression. "Let me clean it up a bit. A proper assessment." No charge. It was the first kindness the car had been offered in decades. He started the next morning, alone. The cleaning wasn't a pre-sale detail. It was an archaeological dig. He mixed a gentle solvent, not to make it shine, but to reveal. As he worked on the dashboard, the grime dissolved not into murky water, but into history. The first stroke of the cloth uncovered not rust, but the elegant tale of a handwritten jest. His heart, a steady engine for 60 years, missed a beat. He switched to a softer brush, a magnifying lens. Letter by letter, the past announced itself. A. Senna. Then the date, 1985. Carlos lowered his tools. The sounds of the waking city outside faded. In the silent garage, he was staring at a secular relic. He knew with the certainty of a lifetime around machines that this changed everything. This wasn't restoration. It was resurrection. He didn't call Maria immediately. He first called an old friend at the Brazilian Historic Vehicle Registry. He read the chassis number over the phone. VWBR 1985001. The silence on the other end was long. "Carlos," the friend finally whispered. "That's the first one. The very first Fusa 1600 off the line in Snow Granado, June 1985. A press car. A showpiece." The puzzle pieces clicked. Senna's first championship win was that November. The factory visit, the celebration. The signing session for employees and contests, it was all in the old magazines Carlos started pulling from his office. Maria arrived to find Carlos not with a price, but with a folder. He showed her photocopies of a young, beaming Senna in a racing suit, leaning into car windows, pen in hand. He showed her the registry confirmation. Then, wordlessly, he led her to the Fusa and pointed. She saw the signature, clear and dark against the aged but clean vinyl. She didn't understand its racing significance, but she understood reverence. She saw it in Carlos's face. And then she remembered her grandfather's hands, always stained with grease, and his one framed photo on his workbench, not of family, but of Ayrton Senna's car blurring past a corner. A connection, silent for a generation, suddenly hummed with voltage. The vultures came quickly. Word leaked from the registry office. Calls flooded Carlos's shop. Offers started at $50,000 and climbed rapidly to $250,000. A German museum emailed. A sheik's representative called. Each offer was a number so abstract it felt meaningless to Maria. Overwhelmed, she went back to her grandfather's house, to the sealed garage. In a drawer of his old desk, under schematics for carburetors, she found his journal. The entry was dated July 14th, 1985. Met God today. Won a contest at work. Got to meet Ayrton. Shook his hand. My hands were sweating. He signed the dashboard of the new Fusa I helped inspect. I told him it was the most beautiful car I'd ever seen. He laughed and said, "The beauty is not in the sitting, but in the driving. A car in a garage is a bird in a cage. Promise me you'll drive it." I promised. She read the words in the dusty garage, sitting on the floor where the Fusa once lived. The ghost had a voice. It wasn't asking to be sold. It was asking to be freed. She returned to Carlos with her decision. I don't want the money. I want the promise kept. Carlos, for the first time, smiled a full, unreserved smile. The restoration transformed. It was no longer a commercial project, but a covenant. They sourced original Brazilian parts from collectors who donated them when they heard the story. The final test was the sound. In the hushed garage, Carlos turned the key. The starter motor whined, the engine coughed once, twice, then caught with a deep, rhythmic thrum that echoed off the brick walls. It was the sound of 1985. It was the sound of a promise kept. Maria, leaning against the doorway, cried without shame. The Senna Institute, upon authenticating everything, made an unusual request. They didn't want to buy it. They wanted to exhibit it alive. The agreement was simple. The car would be displayed at the museum, but it would be started and run regularly. Its oil would be changed, its tires rotated. It would not be a static trophy. Today, the Fusa do Senna occupies the center of the museum's main hall. A simple placard tells the story of a fan, a promise, and a granddaughter's choice. But the real exhibit happens at 11 a.m. every Saturday. A museum attendant, wearing white cotton gloves, gets in the driver's seat. The crowd gathers close. He turns the key. That distinctive, air-cooled roar erupts, sharp and alive, reverberating through the space. It runs for exactly 5 minutes. For those 300 seconds, history is not something you see behind glass. It's something you feel in your chest. It's the vibration of a kept promise, the heartbeat of a legacy that refused to be silenced by time, rust, or the low price of scrap metal. Maria sometimes visits, always standing at the back. She watches children's faces light up at the sudden noise, sees old men wipe their eyes. The car is no longer her burden. It's a shared inheritance. It's proof that value isn't assigned by appraisers, but by stories. That sometimes the most precious things are hiding in plain sight, buried under dust and dismissal, waiting for someone with the patience to see not what is, but what was, and what could be again. All it takes is one person to look past the rust and hear the faint, persistent whisper of a promise waiting to be kept.